the lunch and learn for Friday. This is the Power BI / Fabric lunch and learn. Today we're talking Microsoft Fabric. I am looking forward to this one. It will. I don't. Like all lunch and learns, I don't really have an agenda for this. This is me playing around with the system. I am a little bit prepared. I've got some stuff that we can kind of get going with the Fabric platform, but for the most part, this will be unscripted. Feel free to chime in if you see me doing something completely wrong, or you want to explore something. Then let me know. But I want to just dive straight into it. So the first thing we need to do is actually get to Fabric. So I'm going to share my screen. Got a lovely beach scene today. I don't know where this is from. I have to check Bing. What does Bing say? Bing wallpaper. It's the Great Barrier Reef, of course. I don't recognize that part of the Great Barrier Reef. Usually they show the Heart Island. There you go. We're looking at the Great Barrier Reef. Let's get to our Power BI. Now, this is the first session on Fabric, so I just want to get some housekeeping out of the way. We want to show you how to set it up, which I did briefly do in the other one, but just in case you don't know how to do that. And now I'm going to have to kill the recording at that point. Don't worry, we'll fix that up later. Let me get to the Fabric. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is go to we'll start here. All right. First thing you want to do is go to your Azure admin portal. Now, they have just changed this menu preferences to something new, so I'm a little bit lost. You hit the little cog, you go to your admin portal, and you need to enable Fabric in your tenant settings here. Let me turn on my zoom it so I can zoom in on things, although mostly you can see. It does help. Okay, so this one, we want to do this one. You want to enable that for either all of your users in the organization, specific users if you need to. There's another new thing here, which is called domains, which we can talk about at some point as well. That's a new thing. But there was also one other thing about Fabric that I think you needed to enable a bit further down. But something about there's this one, which is Fabric metadata in Microsoft 365 services. This is for sharing Fabric stuff to the other Microsoft 365 services. So that might be one that's you're interested in. And there was one other, but the main one really is the top one. So you just need to make sure that you enable your Fabric preview if you want to look at it in your services. Now, one thing they haven't added here yet, because it's still in preview, is the sorry, I'm just navigating my teams here. Is the one that well, I'll bring it up. Is the One Lake Data Explorer thing. Now, what's it? Is it called One Lake Explorer? Let me get the link for you. I sent it to my team recently, so I should be able to find it just here. Here it is. One Lake File Explorer is what it's called. So the other thing we're going to be doing is installing One Lake File Explorer. Well, I've already done it. That looks like this. I'll pop it in the chat for you. One Lake Hub. Yeah, One Lake Hub is the new name for the data hub. There it is in the chat. One Lake File Explorer is like OneDrive. When you sync OneDrive to Windows, so I'm not sure how many of you do this. I do this all the time. Obviously, I've got a lot of OneDrive stuff here, right? It creates this new One Lake view of your data lake inside, so that you can drag and drop files to it. So I've got DWC internal, and I've got this Fabric playground, and inside here we've got some stuff. So we need to install that. So the link's in the chat there, or you can see the link here at the top from learn.microsoft.com. It is still a preview thing as far as I know, but this will be one of the ways that we create that we be able to drag and drop files. It allows us to seamlessly integrate One Lake with Windows File Explorer. One Lake with Windows File Explorer. So we'll have a look at that. All right. So where does our thing live? So the first thing after you've enabled everything, what we want to do is create a Fabric workspace. So we go to our workspaces, we create a new workspace, we call it whatever we want to call it. I've got one already, it's called Fabric Playground. You hit this one. You just need to make sure that you've got your trial enabled. That's the other thing you need to do is enable your trial. So here in your little thing here, you should have that should have this trial status, and you need to enable your trial for that to work as well. I've got 52 days left of my trial, and then I'll have to grab a SKU. Now, I will talk about pricing as well, because pricing just came out, and it's surprisingly reasonable. Well, I don't know if that's surprising for Power BI. Power BI has always been quite good from a cheapness perspective, but like the entry level is like $250 a month US, which is quite amazing. Anyway, it's amazing what you can do. So you have to also enable your trial. Okay, so we've got our one leg file explorer, we've got Power BI, and now we want to enable our workspace. So create our new workspace, put it in here, make sure that your trial is enabled when you create it, and then in your workspaces you'll get a little diamond guy like this called Fabric Playground or whatever you called it, with a little diamond next to it to tell us that it's Fabric content. And you can see I've got a bunch of sample set data sets in here, but this will be empty when you first start. So far so good. We've enabled some bits and pieces. Let me just quickly do that because I'm getting a little bit of background noise. All right. So what are all the different things we can create in Fabric? So you can see if we hit show all, there's a bunch of different stuff. We can create a lake house. We can create a notebook. We can create a Spark job. We can create a data flow Gen 2, Gen 2 data flow, a data pipeline, a model, an experiment, another type of notebook, a data science notebook. That'll be the same thing, I'm sure. A data warehouse, or we could create a report, an operational report, which is a new name for a paginated report. So that's new. I call them operational reports now. A scorecard, which will be metrics, dashboard, a data flow Gen 2 again, a data mart, a streaming data set, or a streaming data flow. Man, Power BI is getting complicated, isn't it? And then if you want to do real-time analytics, this is pretty much a whole new area for the Power BI service. You've got these KQL databases, a KQL query set, and an event stream. So that's a lot of stuff. So it's safe to say that we'll have plenty to talk about over the coming weeks and months, because obviously we're not going to cover all of this in a single session. But I want to just run through some basic kind of use cases so that we can start getting our head around like what would we do in different situations when it comes to building Fabric content, because it is a slightly different approach. And if you're coming from the world of Power BI where you're used to just connect straight to data and hit go and then publish the report, it's almost counterintuitive. You're adding several more steps in the workflow. And if you add several more steps to the workflow, it's like, well, why is this better? And so we need to look at why we have these extra steps in our workflow. What are the benefits and what are the disbenefits, and when should we just build a Power BI on top of some Excel files, and when should we build a one lake source, and all that kind of stuff. And I want to explore this with you, like come up, and I would like to hear about your different use cases, and we can explore whether Fabric is the right solution for that, because I think Fabric, architecturally, sort of theoretically speaking, it solves a lot of problems. It should perform really well. It's set up to perform very, very well. It looks like it's going to be pretty cheap. So it should mean that organizations of all sizes should be able to have access to this stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see what people think. Let me get the chat back up so I can see what you all are saying. We've blown Lance's mind. Nice one. That's early. It's early to have your mind blown. I like it, Lance. All right. So the first use case I want to do is I'm actually building a report in real life, but I created some fake data using my best mate, ChatGPT. Here in my Fabric playground, I I've created some employee tables, and what I want to do is create a universal employee dimension. We're creating like an internal report at Dear Watson, which is like a, hey, this is my week type of report where you see this is all the work that I've done for the week, and this is how long this is like all the information about that employee, and this is how long it is until my birthday, and this is how long I've been employed for, and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like your profile kind of report. And I wanted to do that, we need to mash data together from quite a few different sources. We've got a bunch of stuff in Zero. We've got a bunch of stuff in Azure DevOps, is what we use for our timekeeping. We've got a bunch of stuff in Dynamics 365. We've got a bunch of stuff in a bunch of different areas. So what we want to do, and then there's manually entered stuff as well, like targets and forecast and stuff like that. And we want to bring all that stuff together. I felt that this was sufficiently complicated to warrant putting it into a Fabric solution, although you could create this as just a straight up Power BI solution. I wanted to explore what the process would be like in terms of building this in Fabric, and what are all the different steps we need to make. So the first step that I need to do is I need a place where I can dump my source files so that the system can access them. And that's what OneLake is for. So anything to do with storage of data is going to be in our data lake or our OneLake. We've already installed our OneLake file explorer here. So we've got a place where files will theoretically appear. Now let's look at the link between Power BI and OneLake File Explorer. So if I create this new workspace, I will create a new one now. So we'll call this employee. Let's call this the HR. This is hard to name things because I'm like, should it be department wise? We've got to think about our workspace strategy here. It could be a department-wise workspace, or it could be an all-in-one workspace, or it could be, and then for a Fabric, should we name it for just should we have one data lake per department or domain, or should we have multiple data lakes, one each? It gets hard, right? For this purposes of this, I'm going to say HR has their own data lake that they put all their HR data in. Okay. I'll call this HR data. We'll call it HR Fabric Solutions. I don't know, something like that. I can give it a domain. I've already created a HR domain, so I've put it in the domain. We can talk about domains later. They're just basically another sort of abstraction of workspaces. We could come up with a nice little workspace image. I've got some in my pictures here. I've got a nifty little, got all sorts of crazy images in here, but let me see if I can find the one that I created the other day. Yeah, we'll use the bot. That'll do. Don't know where that other one was. Oh, we'll use a donut. That's good for HR. Okay. Oh, it's too big, of course. Needs to be small. Will the bot work? I had a specialized. Oh, look, let's use this one. The classic Power BI logo as our logo. All right. Data's in Redshift. Okay, yeah, we can talk about Redshift stuff for sure. Lance says Fabric will disrupt the entire CPM, EPM planning and forecasting industry. You can now scale your custom Excel customized model and build at scale. Each workbook can be a module. Well, I think there's all sorts of interesting implications for that. All right, I created this new HR Fabric Solutions, Fabric Content Workspace. It's got nothing in it. I haven't done anything yet. There's nothing for it to get from thing. So let's have a look at my OneLake and see if I sync this. So I could right click and say sync. Will this appear as a new place I can put data in yet? Be really interesting. I don't think it does yet. Syncing. I don't think so. No. So it hasn't appeared yet. Okay. So in order for OneLake to be able to see, I need a OneLake solution for it to look at, which is one of these, a lakehouse, the top left-hand thing. Okay, so our lakehouse is where we can operationalize. I don't know if that's always been a word. Maybe it has. I think I said that. Someone said productionize to me, and I'm like, productionize? Anyway, let's create a lakehouse. Hopefully, the service will cooperate with me today while I'm doing demos. All right. Creating a new lakehouse. It's going to be the HR lakehouse. Oh, and it can only create, so it doesn't like underscores. I've just clicked off it. Has it disappeared? Yeah, let me try again. So I think I can put underscores in here. Lake house. No spaces, no special characters in the name of our lake house. Now we've got a place to store data, which is all a lake house is. So now when I refresh here on my one lake, I'll sync it from one lake. Hopefully, everything being equal, our HR Fabric Solutions has now appeared. And inside our HR Fabric Solutions is the HR Lakehouse, .lakehouse. So that's how you need to at least have something for one lake to see before it will sync. And then inside our lakehouse, it says files and tables. And as you can see here, it says files and tables as well. And so files are files and tables are delta tables, which are essentially kind of files as well with a bit of metadata on top. And the file type is called Parquet, and people are releasing all sorts of interesting videos about Parquet format now. And it'll be important for you to understand kind of how Parquet and Delta kind of works. But the quick explanation for Parquet files is that they're just like CSV files, except they're column store, not row. So you know how the VertiPack engine in Power BI, I'm sure you're all aware, is a column store database. It's really good at columns, right? It does columns. Well, Parquet is the file version of that. It's a column store file type. It's a very efficient way of storing data, especially if you have a really fast column store engine like VertiPack to run over the top. So hopefully that's something cool. I'd suggest not calling the lakehouse something ending in lakehouse, although you end up with a data OS that's called something lakehouse. Oh, that's a good point. Did I call it HR lakehouse? No, I did. And as Michael points out in the chat, Delta tables are Parquet files with improved metadata, which gives you versioning and time travel and a bunch of different other cool things. And there's a link there in the chat about Delta and how it works. It's an open source. It's an open source thing. So don't call it something lakehouse. That's our first tip of the day. I made a mistake, like I always do, but that's all good. Thanks, Greg. And that's Dr. Greg, not me. Fields and files are not Excel workbooks, unfortunately. No, files are not Excel workbooks. God, Excel people, you just love your Excel. Let's put some Excel in there, though. You know, I made that mistake the first time.
I did. It didn't like it. It didn't like it. I tried. Don't worry. I tried it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so we want to put our files. So you can think of files as our drop zone where we drop files as our users, or we would set up automation to drop files in here, or that kind of stuff, right? We want to drop our raw files into files, and then we want to build something that turns them into Delta tables. Okay, and so we're moving essentially from files to tables, files being our raw drop zone, tables being the place where all the the optimized for analysis efficient version of those files is going to exist.
So files is like a persistent landing zone or something, is it?
Yeah, that's how I imagine it. I think that's how it's intended to be used. Looking at one like File Explorer, you can see they've got a bunch of different things in workspaces and things in here. But let's see what they've got in terms of. So we'll see when we create a file, when we create a table, it automatically populates tables with your Delta tables. Actually, it's probably got one already here in Fabric Playground. So if we look in this has a sales table. We've got a delta.log and a bunch of Parquet files, right? So I've created this sales table. It's generated these Parquet files for me, and it's generated this delta log, and this makes up a Delta table. This kind of format here, you get this Delta log and these Parquet files. If we look in the files area, you can see a bunch of CSV files, and I've got these HR files, which are Excel, which is actually the files we're going to use. So we're going to copy these out. Make sure these are the fake data files and not the real files. go back to our HR Fabric Solutions Lakehouse. Here's to Greg's point. We've got lakehouse.lakehouse now. I'm going to drop my files into my files area. Paste. Okay, I've created. Now, just quick rundown on the files. They're pretty simple files. Okay, so I've got some employee contact details. Inside employee contact details, I wonder if we can just use preview for this. You can see I've got the employee name, employee ID, employee name, their date of birth, their age, their address, their telephone number, and their email. So this is just basic. Now, if you're familiar with the Xero system, these are the formats of real reports that come out of Xero. So you could theoretically build this using your Xero employee remuneration, leave balances, and contact detail things. It's exactly the same format, with the exception of one thing, which is I added this employee primary key just to make life a little bit easier for matching things up. I've got an employee remuneration file, which is a report that gives me all of my 5 employees, when they started, when they've been terminated, if they've been terminated, their employment type, so they're full-time, part-time, where they work, what classification they have, what type of pay calendar they have, their standard hourly rate, their standard, hourly, I think that's our standard fortnight. So month, so monthly they get 160 hours, fortnightly they get 76, weekly they get 40, right? So it's whatever their standard number of units is for their pay cycle, the unit rate, and then their annual salary is here. Okay, and then here we've got a leave balances thing. So we've got all of our employees, how much annual leave they've got left in terms of hours and dollars, and then how much personal leave they've got left in terms of hours and dollars. That's it. What we want to do is bring all this together because we're building this employee report, right? We want to basically build an employee master dimension that's got the employee with all their contact details, their current remuneration, and leave balances as a single employee DIN. And that's it. All right, that's the plan. Hopefully we can do something by the end of the session. If not, we'll do it next week. So I've dumped some stuff into my OneLake file area. So now the first thing I want to do is, I guess we've got 2 kind of options we can do here, and I've kind of struggled with this a little bit. As you can see, I've been playing with it during the week in that thing. There's 2 kind of data transformation tools inside Fabric, and sometimes I think to myself I should use one, and then I think I should use the other one, and I'm never really 100% sure. But really, we've got one that moves files, which is our pipelines, or what is it called these days? I can't even remember. Is it data factory, data flow, data pipeline? It's called a data pipeline. And then you've got a data flow. Okay. Or you could do some Spark stuff. Now, I'm not going to do any Spark stuff right now, but theoretically, you could transform data in Spark. You can transform data in data flows, and you could transform data in the data pipeline. If it's like Data Factory, yes. So let's have a look at pipeline as our first option. If I wanted to just move data from one place to another, which is, I think, what I'm going to do first. Maybe what I'll do is I'll move the Excel file, well, the Excel file, so pipelines might not be the right answer. We'll find out in a second. If I want to move data from one place to another, then I should use a pipeline to do my data movement, because that's what pipelines are good at, moving data. But I also want to read data out of an Excel and transform it and turn it into a single table, which is what I would use a data flow for. Is knowing Spark an expectation for a Power BI developer, or just one of those nice to haves? I'd say currently it's a nice to have. I'd say as Fabric matures, it potentially becomes something you'll need to know. But right now, definitely a nice to have.
Spark is, as far as languages go, is not very friendly. Most Spark engines allow you these days to write SQL into it anyway. So I would be focusing on SQL if you're learning a language, or if you really have to, Python.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend learning Scala for sure. I definitely think Python. And if you're doing Spark stuff, then Python is going to be the way to go. I think that's where it will all end up. Let's quickly create a pipeline and just see what it looks like. I don't think it's going to be the right solution in this case, so I'll just call it pipeline 1. Okay, so this is pipeline. Now, pipelines are very similar to Azure Synapse pipelines or Azure Data Factory. Both of those two things basically synonymous with pipelines. Look, it's got a thing called a data flow in it. Man, this naming convention is going to get really confusing. All right. This is the big D data flow. And then inside Power BI, it was the little d data flow, but it might be a big D, or it could be a big D, big F data flow. Anyway. Okay, so we created a pipeline. This pipeline theoretically should be able to copy data from one area to the other. So if we create a copy data activity, we should be able to choose our source. Now you'll see this is a limited set of things, right? And this is where we need to differentiate the difference between a pipeline and a data flow, Gen 2, or a data flow. Pipeline is where you really where we're moving stuff at scale. So you're only going to have the big scale sources here available to you. One thing this doesn't say is Excel spreadsheet, right? So we're potentially not going to be able to do it. Now let's have a look at what's happening inside our lakehouse though. So if we hit lakehouse, this is the new lakehouse thing. We can select our lakehouse, our HR lakehouse. Look at our files. And it is going to say, this is okay, so it does recognize Excel as a file format, as my source file format. I'm going to bring my copy details in. All right, let's just make sure we've got all the right things here. This says I'm selecting my employee contact details. Should I create it, make it schema agnostic? Files will be treated as binaries. Schema definitions will not be enforced. Destination cannot be a relational database. So this would be, it's just going to dump the file, maybe? I have to find out more about what that schema binary.
So,
it's just binary
yeah,
only, right?
The schema agnostic stuff is around new stuff in Delta. So it allows
yeah.
schema migration. So it means that if you've got a changing data source, say you're going to be adding extra columns, or maybe the data types are changing, it doesn't enforce those schema rules and fail the pipeline if the schema changes.
Yeah, of course. Right, so you just make it a straight dump over the top. So you can either enforce a schema or not enforce a schema depending on the file. So if I was anticipating, so this is an extract from 0, it's never going to change. Well, if it changes, it's a big deal. So I'm happy for it to have its schema enforced because I'm anticipating I probably need to make a bunch of changes anyway. But if it was like a JSON file that could change or was known to change it a lot, then you potentially make it schema agnostic so that you could have both come in or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, it's much more for like developers and web apps where they're using like NoSQL backends or something.
Yeah, exactly. Those weird JSON stuff. Okay, it says it automatically detected my file format. It says worksheet mode here, in name or index. I like this. That means that I can do it by name, but I have so many files, Excel files or sources where they have, say, the date as the worksheet name. And then the latest worksheet has the latest date on it, which means the worksheet name's never the same. You just want to look at worksheet number 1 every time.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So you can set it as the index. So I'm happy with that. Okay. We've got the sheet name, which it's going to be called sheet 1. Oh, what does edit mode mean? If you point this to a folder or multiple files, make sure all these particular worksheets exist in all the files. Okay, so if this is a folder, so it says select a folder or a file. That's interesting. So I can do this over multiple Excel worksheets. This is one for you, Lance. Pay attention. That means
I'm listening.
That means if I've got a folder in here called with the latest set of reports, and each one of those reports is exactly the same format, and they all have different worksheet names, but you want to look at the first worksheet every time, you can get it to iterate over that folder and bring the data in using this tool. That's very cool. I love that. Okay. Okay, so we're just going to bring in sheet name. What happens if I click edit? Nothing. Can I put it in edit mode? I don't know what that button does yet. All right. Give me the range. So if you wanted to set a specific range, use the first row as a header. This is interesting because one thing I did on purpose here was inside my files was I made it on the file needs a little bit of transformation. It's actually on row 5. I left the first 4 blank, and I did that intentionally because in 0, this is actually, it comes out with a header here with the first row if you ran this as a report, and you have to remove the top 4 rows first. So interestingly, it skipped all that white space. That wouldn't be white space in the thing. But anyway, that's interesting. Use the first row as a header. Let's do that. That should give us our proper names. So it's the first non-blank row, I guess. Yeah, look at that. It automatically skipped the first 4 rows without me telling it to do anything. And then it's found this one as the first row. Interesting. So if those rows are blank, then it's cool. The Wild West of spreadsheets. It sure is. Filter by last modified. You can put in a modifying filter here. Oh shit, I didn't mean to do that. Clear. Oh, that's nice too. So you could set it to a range. And then we could compress it if we wanted to as well into a bzip or a gz or tar or whatever. Okay. Is that if it's compressed? Wait, does this mean I can read a compressed file?
Yeah,
Is that what we're saying?
Well, yeah.
That's sick.
It's like ADF, yeah. So you can compress your CSVs when you're exporting them from a system.
Because
and then read
often
them,
you
yeah.
will get an export out in a zip, right? And it'll have data inside it. I love that. Okay. Nice. And here's our 5 rows. And it looks good. Let's hit next. Okay. Now, where do I want to put it? I can put it in my blob storage. I can put it in my Azure Data Lake Gen 2, which would be where I would put it in the olden days. But in the new days, I would put it in my lakehouse, right? I can set it straight to Dataverse if we wanted to, if you're doing app integration or you got one of those crazy Dynamics CRM situations going on. Oh, there's Dynamics CRM as a native service. So all the big storage solutions. All right, so we're sending it to the lakehouse. We're going to have to create a new table. Next. Create a new, it's the current lakehouse, which is called HR Lakehouse. Okay. A new table. I'm going to call this, what was it? Employee details. Oh, I'm always in, should I? It's called employee contact details. I'm giving it the same name because this is a raw load. I'm just getting the data out and loading it raw, so I'll give it the same name. I might do something now. The question is, do you want to append it to a new table? So every time we add a new version of this file, it's going to add the table at the bottom, or do we want to overwrite? And I want to overwrite at this stage. Oh, and I can enable partitioning. That's nice too. Okay, let's have a look at these in detail so we know what they are. Oh, I can't do that. I have to open this up first. Okay, so that's append to a new. This overwrite table option will overwrite the existing data and schema in the table using the new values, which is what we want every time we want it to be an overwrite. And this, create partitions in a folder structure based on one or multiple columns. Each distinct column value pair will be a new partition. So if you create a year partition and a month partition, then you'll get a year folder and a month folder, then the file. Supports insert only mode and requires an empty directory in the sink. The sink is the destination location. They call it the sink in Data Factory. So you could set up partitioning. I don't want to partition this file, but this is cool because I potentially do want to partition maybe some fact tables later to make them more efficient when I'm reading data out of them. Now, One thing I haven't really looked into, which would be really interesting to do some, we'll do some analysis on it later, is where the partition pruning and like some of that Delta stuff is all enabled. Like I don't know what version of Delta they're using, and what features are available yet inside Fabric. But if it's doing proper partition pruning, that means it will prune out partitions before it does the query, so it won't run and get all the data and then filter them out, which is kind of what would happen if you say you pointed Power Query at a giant data set. If it's got partition pruning over Delta, that means it'll prune out the partitions on the server side first and then only give you the relevant partitions, which means it's significantly faster, as you can imagine. Pretty cool for IoT data. Yeah, absolutely. Because you're going to get so much data coming in. Anyway, so that's partitioning. Obviously, same kind of idea as you would, if you're familiar with sort of data engineering partitioning, then and SQL database partitioning, similar kind of stuff. All right. So we're taking it from the lakehouse and we're putting it back in the lakehouse. We're going to take it out of this Excel file and we're going to smash it into this table. Start the data transfer immediately. Why not? Save and run. Start immediately after saved. Yep. Hopefully this works. Run, run, run. Save, successful. Pipeline run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 has been run. We have this copy data activity, which is, if I double click on it, oh, you just do this, do you? No. Oh, it's down here. This has all of our information in it. If you're familiar with Azure Data Factory, this will look very familiar to you because it is basically the same. So you've got your general source, destination, mapping and settings. You set your source types, the root folder. So it's basically that little wizard just has set all these settings for us. Then it sets our sync. Then it talks about our mapping. Now we haven't done any table mapping from one to the other. I think it will do it just automatically. There's no, so it's pretty format. You can see there's some extra features here. Processes all the files in the input folder and its subfolders recursively. So you can set up to do a recursive file type. You can do advanced file stuff here as well. There's lots to talk about in this space, but we've just done the basics. We followed the wizard. So what we should have theoretically now, that's all saved. Looks like it's all saved. I think I can just close this and without fear. I'm always scared of, let's see what happens if I close it. Nothing, all right. Files, there's a new folder. I was wondering if that folder would actually come through or not, which it did. That's nice. I can just arbitrarily create folders in here in my OneLake, and it'll create a new folder here in my lakehouse, which is cool. Now, is my table going to exist, or what's the story, do we think? Maybe not. Not going to let me click on anything. Refresh. Did it run? Thought it ran. Have I broken it? Did I do something wrong? Probably did something wrong. Here's my pipeline. Let's check how my pipeline runs. Oh, there it is. Copy data failed. Wah, wah. Troubleshoot activity failures. What does this say? Oh, employee ID. Column name employee ID contains invalid characters. Welcome to the world of data engineering, where you're constantly battling against column problems. If you don't specify mapping, it copies all the columns where the names are the same, but given we're replacing the data in the schema, it wouldn't need a mapping, yeah. Is there a way to avoid and fix accidental double ups if you choose append? I don't know yet. Yep. Yeah, it looks like doesn't like one of these invalid characters, which is probably a space. Employee space ID. All right, let's see if we can. Do I want to fix that, or do I want to fix it in the pipeline? Is it this one? Is everything else not got spaces in it? No, that's all got spaces in it. There's heaps of spaces. Okay. All right, back to my. So, oh, I just accidentally opened the Windows store to get the latest version of something. All right. Oh yeah, there's my little failure icons on there on my source. Group folder, file format's Excel, sheet name's okay. I don't think I can fix this easily. Import the schema. Previewing the source data work. I'll have a look in a sec. Yeah, but it was working in the wizard, so we'll see. Okay, here's my. Now it's not complaining here about this. Can I just change these destination names? Is it that it doesn't support that in the lake house maybe? Am I being dumb here, or will this just work if I remove all the spaces? Okay, is that it? Let's try that. Preview source. See if the preview source works. Does work. Look at that. It has found all of the things. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is I've just changed my destination columns to be no special characters, which is a space, I guess. Well, it's not that special, but doesn't like it. This is where it gets real janky for me here. I always struggle with getting stuff into like Parquet formats and stuff because I always have column problems, but I guess it's pretty typical. But anyway, let's see what happens if I do this. Let me know if you think this is going to work or if I'm silly. Let's validate it. It has been validated. Okay, run. Run. This is the one we ran before, isn't it? 1238, yeah. Okay. Refresh. In progress. Dun, dun, dun. Only took 14 seconds to fail last time. Still in progress. Still in progress. Succeeded. Hooray! I'm a genius. All right. So what we should see now in our lake house, let's talk about some of these artifacts because you see stuff appears and I want to explain it all. This is the lake house that we created, HR lake house. This is the pipeline we created, pipeline. Now we've only created two things and then you're like, what is this? And what is this? Okay, so with every lake house, it automatically creates a SQL endpoint. Yes, that means you can point SSMS or your favorite SQL, whatever, Toad or whatever at the lake house and look at it as if it's SQL, right? That's pretty cool. I like that. We might do that in a sec too, just for fun. Got schemas and security. We can create an extra add data in lake mode. I haven't even looked at this yet. I don't even know what's going on here. So anyway, that's our SQL endpoint. And then this is our data set, which as Power BI people, you should be familiar with what a data set is. It's just the data set that gets automatically created on top of the lakehouse as well. Now, I haven't thought about direct lake. I haven't looked at anything to do with direct lake and how it works and whether this is direct lake or I don't know how that works yet. So we're going to figure all that stuff out. But I just wanted to explain that it'll automatically create some stuff for you as well. So don't be surprised if you see these extra bits and pieces appearing. Now, we've got our files. We've got our new folder, which is empty because that was just that one that I created. I want to delete this from here. I'm deleting it from here. I want to see if I just refresh this now with one lake, I want to see if it disappears. This should disappear, right? As soon as the sync happens. Hey, and it's gone. All right, so that does work. We've got a new table here in our tables in our lakehouse. Look at it. It's called Employee Contact Details. Loading preview. It's actually got data in it. Look at that. How cool. We have our first Parquet Delta table. I'm not allowed to call it a Parquet Delta table. We've got our first Delta table. Come straight from an Excel spreadsheet, loaded in via a pipeline into our data lake. That is cool. So that is option number 1. Let's have a look at option number 2, which is loading it via the other way of doing things, which is loading it using not a pipeline, but a data flow. And will this work? He asked himself. And then I want to know from all of you gurus out there is which one should we use? Because I'm not 100% sure I am confident I can answer that question. All right. Import from Excel. I mean, it's literally here, but it's the same as this is Power Query, right? You guys should know this inside out. We want to bring this in. Now, we can't bring it in from an Excel workbook. If we click this, it'll take us to OneDrive. It won't take us to the right spot. It'll say, where is your file path or URL? And then you'll be like, whoa, I'm trying to get an Excel workbook, but I don't mean that. What you really are trying to do is get data out of a lakehouse that is an Excel workbook. So we have to go to a lakehouse as our source. Now you'll see here significantly more sources than our data flow. No, not data flow. Oh, this is going to go than our pipeline. Significantly more data sources than our pipeline. This is our Power Query data sources. And then, so you can point a gateway at that if you've got all the ways that you're used to connecting to data using Power Query, you have here as your option. The only thing that's not supported that kind of irks me across both of these is that you can't point to OAuth 2, anything that has OAuth 2 authentication, and it doesn't support custom connectors. So there's no secure way to connect directly to an OAuth 2 source. So if you wanted to say directly to 0, bad luck. You need to have an independent third-party service that surfaces it out via OData or something else. OAuth 2 has always been a bit of a bugbear in the whole Power Query world. And I'm not sure if they'll ever solve it, but hopefully they do, because I would really like to see OAuth 2 come in. Now, it should be available here because this is a web service now. It was a problem before because you couldn't store your keys securely, your private keys securely inside Power BI Desktop. And so you'd have to put it into your query, basically. But here they should just, and where is the Azure Key Vault integration? Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so we're getting data from the lakehouse. Here it is. So it's this guy right here, the lakehouse. Okay, so we're going to click on our lakehouse, use the same lakehouse connection, create a new connection. Yeah, well, I guess it's the one we're pointed at, so that's right. That's interesting. It doesn't show the name here. And then this is an annoying. Let's start making our notes on things we want to give feedback to Microsoft on, because we need to give them this. This list here is not filtered. Lakehouse navigation list is not filtered to lakehouses only. Right, I'm adding a little list over here. Right, so I've got to find my lakehouse. So it was, what was it called? HR something or other, HR Fabric Solutions. Inside HR Fabric Solutions, I have to know that it's got a lakehouse in it. Then I can look in my fake HR lakehouse. Look, something new has appeared as well.
Does the search tree down, or do you have to
let's see.
Expand it first.
Let's see. I'll close all this and go up to here. So it's called HR_lakehouse, right?
Easy.
It doesn't tree down, but it does find the right folder. But that's a lot easier. Inside files, inside here, employee contact details. That's the table, and then here's the files. So we don't want the table, we want the files, right? Boom. We're going to do employee remuneration. It gives us a very familiar looking Excel spreadsheet. Hit next. It goes in, and Power Query we love, just knows what to do. Look how many navigations we get. Look at this. 3 navigations. pretty handy. And it still didn't give us the data. We have to expand this table out. Well, I'm going to click into, so I clicked into the cell there to open the table up. And then it automatically did the promoted headers and all that kind of stuff. It also automatically skipped the first 5 rows. Is that just a thing? It must be just a thing that if the rows are empty, it just skips them. Gave us this nice header promotion. We've got our data in here. That looks really good. I'm pretty happy with that. I don't really have anything I want to do to this from a transformation point of view right now. I'm just doing raw load, right? So this is truly just a true raw load. I'm probably going to have to remove the spaces out of these names, so I might do that. You know what I might do before the promote headers? No, that won't work. I could transpose it and then do a trim, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to rename them. And so there's 2 things I'm going to do. I'm going to rename these with no spaces, and I'm going to change this start date to a date time.
Maybe try not, just so we can experiment and see if it doesn't.
See if it loads.
It's still fine, yeah.
Good idea. Now, the only difference that you'll notice with this screen that you're used to seeing in data flows is this little guy down the bottom right-hand corner here. Data destination. Dun, dun, dun. That is where we will add we get this, again, somewhat limited. So it's not the same as pipelines where you can put it in several different things. This has got a much smaller list of things you can add to, but Lakehouse is one of them. So I'm going to connect to our Lakehouse again. We have to go through the navigation experience again. HR_lake. Oh, didn't match any entries. That's because it's saying this is for an existing table, I think, is it? If you want to go to an existing table, what's going to happen here if I expand this out? Nothing, something. Oh, HR Lakehouse is there. Employee contact details. So I could go to an existing table, but you'd have to select up here existing table as well, which we're not going to do. Okay, we're going to create this employee remuneration table. I'm going to get rid of the XLSX. Don't want that. So there's a new table will be created in the HR Lakehouse. Hit next. It gives us a nicer UI here where it says, what does append and replace mean, or existing and new data? Now, here's our mapping. Some column names contain unsupported characters. Should we fix them for you? So see, this is kind of like a nicer experience. It automatically will fix, well, it added in underscores to fix them. Termination date and start date it doesn't like. Why doesn't it like it? It's because date is not supported. And neither is date time time zone. It has to be date time in a Parquet file. Just one of those things. It's just one of the features. So we want our start date and termination date. So we have to cancel out of here and we have to change this to our date time.
Yeah, that should be flagged as well, because it should just do that for you from a UX point of view.
That's a good point. Let's add that as our list on our list. Date times automatically change to date time. Fix this for you. Yeah, if they can do the column name, surely they can do that as well. All right. So we'll do that again. So then we had to go back here and fix it. Then we come back in and we want to do this again. So we come back in, choose our Lakehouse, hit next. I'm going to add in, doesn't show the name of the Lakehouse. Oh, I guess it gives us the name of the Lakehouse here. It's just a bit confusing though. HR Lakehouse. No, anyway, I'm creating a new table, doesn't matter. Employee remuneration. Select a container. Oh yeah, well, I do need this then. HR fabric solution. So HR worked that time. Is that not enough of a container? Am I waiting for it to? Oh, because of the search, it's limited. This is not great. I searched HR Lakehouse, I didn't find it. Then I searched HR, which found the folder, but then it wouldn't expand because the name didn't contain HR. Anyway, I'm going to say navigation sucks in navigation in Lakehouse data flow 2 sucks. Same issue happened again. So we say fix it for you. It's now fixed. We hit save. I'm happy with this. We could do all sorts of transformations, but we don't want to do that right now. We're going to hit publish. And now look at all these artifacts that got created. Dun, dun, dun. We now get a data flow staging lakehouse, a data flow staging lakehouse SQL endpoint, a data flow staging warehouse, and a data flow staging warehouse. Oh, there's 2 data sets, a warehouse and 2 data sets, and a SQL endpoint, all just to create a data flow.
That's going to get so busy.
That seems messy to me.
Rick,
Yeah.
So can you go back into the data flow and go see if you can edit those settings? Because that's the issue that I had. Once that's done, I don't think you can go back and edit the destination settings for the tables that do that. But I'd be interested to see if you can.
Go back into the data flow and edit this destination. Yeah, I've got a little bug I found.
Destination
I'm not sure if it's this one here.
Oh, okay, so you can now.
I get a little cog that I can, yeah. I don't know if that.
Yeah,
anyway, I don't want to edit
come
this
up,
yet.
yeah.
I just want to. You're not getting the cog? Is that what you were?
No, yeah, I've got a data flow
okay.
that doesn't have the cog. That doesn't actually show the destination
Interesting.
settings. I've raised it with them, but I don't know why.
Yeah. So I don't know about using data flow. If you're doing just straight movement like we did with the thing, I think potentially a pipeline's better because you just get less artifacts. If you're doing a lot of data flows though, you're probably only going to get one version of these data flow staging things though, right? I don't know. That's something to think about though. I don't know about this creating extra stuff inside my lakehouse. And is this costing me money, or like it just raises questions for people. Okay, so we've got our data flow. The data flow hasn't run yet. We didn't give us the option to run automatically. I can go back in and edit it by clicking on it as we just did. It still says lakehouse is all good. I'm just going to exit it. So let's run it by hitting the refresh button, which is the classic way to run a data flow in Power BI. It's going to go real.
Maybe it was after the refresh. Maybe after the refresh,
Maybe.
change it. I think that's you can't change it after you've done the refresh. The end destination, which makes sense.
So
you've locked it in, yeah.
You've kind of, committed. It'll take a little while to refresh. Can I see the refresh status at any point? It does give me status here. Okay, so that's nice. I was going to say because like we could see the status in the other one. The on-demand refresh. We don't know if it's run yet. This is the history file. So you can see the full refresh history of your data flows here. That's nice. In progress. Just take a while.
I wonder if it's going to suffer from the same problem as Power BI, like you got to close it and open it again.
Yeah, like the refresh looks like it's refreshing when it's still going along. Yeah, I do wonder about that myself. Let's have a look at our lakehouse in the meantime. See if there's an unidentified table in here. That's a good sign. There it is, just appeared as I went between the two. So let's go back to where was I? Well, that's a SQL endpoint. No. You also get all these extra little icons here on the left-hand side. You have to navigate. Okay, so the data flow looks like it's still refreshing though, but it has created the artifact for it. Let's have a look in refresh history. Still in progress. It's only 5 rows. Come on. Hurry up. It's probably everybody's doing refreshes. It's logged in a huge queue of data refreshes that need to happen. All the artifacts need to be updated.
Did you have that problem like a month ago with not enough containers, mashup containers available, and there were slow refreshes happening on any of your clients?
No.
Maybe it was just premium workspaces.
Yeah, I've had things where, as I said, like 5 lines takes like 3 minutes the first time I do it.
Yeah. I wonder if it's got to spin up a whole new job or something to. Still says in progress. I'll give it a couple of minutes. I'm just reading the comments. Parquet only supports float, not decimal. Yeah, that's true. But it must automatically just change decimals to floats, I guess.
I think it's where it gets really tricky, because the Power BI data type says decimal, but it's actually a float, right? And
yeah,
so
that's
when
true.
the output says decimal, it's probably going, yeah, that's fair enough, because it matches a decimal in the sort of Power BI-ish type language. But I do wonder, when you then stick a SQL thing in there, like what on earth happens? Yeah, so.
Yeah. Well, while I was looking at the chat, it finished.
And interestingly, it said it only took like a minute to run. It said finished at 1:02.
I have seen people commenting about this where it says, I don't know who was talking about it, but they say, if you look at the refresh, it takes 3 minutes, but then the refresh history says it took 2 seconds or whatever. That did say 2 minutes 39. That seemed pretty close, but it succeeded, which is great. To be honest, this is the first time I've actually had a data flow succeed. Normally it will fail and say something went wrong and give me a horrible error message, and it was really annoying me. So I'm happy to see that data flows actually sometimes work. All right, so our data flow worked, which means back in our lakehouse, click on the lakehouse, we should have now 2 tables, which we saw we did. We've got an employee remuneration table. Here it is, and an employee contact detail table. Now, the third thing I'm going to do, this will be interesting, is can I now edit that data flow to get the other table and also load that? Is it going to create 2 new tables? What's going to happen if you have multiple output tables in a data flow? Oh, well, stay tuned to find out, people. Oh, we're a little bit over time, but let me just do this one other thing because I'm in the zone. With people using the wizards, we're not only going to have a large number of objects created, we're going to have a large number of poorly named objects created. Exactly. It's very true. All right. And I shall be the one who create, yes, the data flow staging lakehouse, warehouse, lakehouse. All right. Right, let's go into back to a whole bunch of, well, it's artifacts. The messy workspace thing was only the beginning, wasn't it? Okay, so what I mean is if I get I go here and I say, get me more stuff, right? I want to go to my lakehouse and do the same process again. Wait, has lakehouse moved? Where did it go? It was right here before. Why, is it different every time? Anyway.
Actually, what was funny is before it had 2 entries that said Lakehouse Power Platform.
Did it?
Yeah, they're exactly the same wording and picture. Yep.
Oh my God. 235 vinyl V2. Yeah. Okay. HR Fabric Solutions.
I also wondered, Greg, was that case sensitive in that list? Because I noticed when you typed capital HR, you seem to get a different outcome before little HR.
I believe it is. Oh no, it's not now. But
It's
I thought
not
it was.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, I'm so confused. All right.
Agile development, they're releasing.
Yeah, people are watching. Someone's watching, and if you're watching from Microsoft and you're in this call, you have to let us know. All right. We want to get our lead balances file. Tick. Create. Because this is what a normal Power BI person would do, right? They would just load a bunch of tables in a single query. I don't know if this is best practice from a data flow perspective. Sure. Now, look, if I click on employee remuneration, it says Lakehouse down the bottom here, right? And then if I click leave balances, it says no data destination. So it is each loaded table can have its own destination. So that's how they resolve that. Now, because we know that dates aren't going to work and we need to have special things, there's no dates in here, which is fortunate. And everything except for employee group, oh, there's a few spaces, but I think we're happy to continue. I'm just going to run through this process as we did before. It says just Lakehouse and not which Lakehouse. Yeah. So first I have to connect to a Lakehouse and then click next. And then on the next page, I select which Lakehouse by selecting capital HR and then not getting HR. See, look, this is where it wasn't case sensitive, Greg. This is what we were looking at before. That's going on the list. Not case sensitive in the destination target. And then if I put little HR, will it work? Oh, that's terrible. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We should say it's not case insensitive, because a human is going to expect it to be case insensitive.
Yes, not case insensitive. You are absolutely correct. All right. We wanted to do the automatic fix. Everything looks good. Those data types look good. Hit save. And we're happy for that destination to work. Hit publish, and we're going to refresh it. Let's see how long it takes this time. And that'll be the end of this session while it's doing its little refresh. What did we learn today? We learned about the little One Lake Explorer, which is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. You'll see here in our little tables, we can actually see the Parquet files as well. So we've got raw access to this data. If for some reason we wanted to point a different tool at this, we can certainly do that. It would be interesting to see what kind of Azure artifacts get created in the back end, and can I access the Lakehouse from the back end? Is it just an ADLS Gen 2 instance inside my Azure? Well, stay tuned next week. We'll find out. I'll have a look. So I quite like that you can get, but I really like that you have open raw access to data. I think that's really important just across data platforms generally. I'm happy with this using an open source format like Delta. That's really fantastic. We've got this new thing called warehouse system. I don't even know what this does. So it says MF, and then it's got some goods. Don't know what that is. Have no idea. We'll learn about that eventually, I'm sure. We've got our files. They are all working. So we learned about One Lake. So get yourself the One Lake preview. Check that out. Install it so that you can do your One Lake File Explorer. Here's the link if you need it. Again, we'll chuck it in the chat. Data flow failed. And this is kind of what I was expecting to happen, to be honest, because I find when I edit a data flow, weird things happen. There was a problem publishing my data flow. Or did I hit the refresh button too quickly? Maybe it's something like that. I'm hitting refresh too quick. Let's have a look at the refresh history. It says it's in progress, but the publish didn't happen. Yeah, had lots of data flow bugs. I'm getting lots of data flow bugs. Okay, I think there might be a refresh while publishing issue. Or publishing, question mark. Hey, MVP's on the call, which is Win or Greg. Do you guys know what the best where to log bugs and stuff? Is there a dedicated email list for Fabric, or is it just the data one?
There's a Fabric community site, for normal people, but if you're, of course, still in the preview, there's still the channels.
Oh yeah,
for
the channel. I'm in the
experiences.
channel. Yeah. Yeah, I can put them in the channel. Okay, cool. Just wanted to know where I should log these bugs. All right, nice. Yeah, so if you're out there and you just find you're just a regular person, you need to buy, there's a Fabric community site, right? So you can go there. It's like the Power BI community site. Let's find that site so that we know, so we can give it to people. Do a quick Google search or Bing search because it's smarter. Right, Fabric community. Oh, well, unsurprisingly, it is community.fabric.microsoft.com. Here it is. So if you find bugs and you're not an MVP and you don't have the inside running, then yes, you can log your user voice stuff here. Fabric user groups coming to your local Melbourne area soon. Well, I think the Power BI user group will probably just become also the Fabric user group, or maybe the data platform one will. I don't know what's happening yet, but we'll work it out. The bugs, that's right. This is still in progress. As soon as this finishes, which I'm guessing it'll fail, or will it work? I don't know. We'll find out in a sec. That will be the end of the session. So I just want to say thanks. Good to see you all again. We ran a little over time this time, but it's too cool. You've got so much stuff to explore. We learned a little bit about loading data. We tried the two different ways. We tried a data flow and we tried a pipeline. The pipeline to me just seemed a little bit more robust. We're getting some errors and people are complaining about errors in data flows. So I think if you've got the option of using a pipeline, maybe try using pipelines in the short term. But we're going to have to do some transformation though. Like I want to mash all those files together into a single dimension. I'm going to try to do that in data flows. I don't know if we'll have enough transformation options in pipeline to do that. Can I do left joins and stuff? Who knows? We'll find out next time. Anyway, I don't know if this is going to work. It looks like it's still running. Although it says it stopped running here. So maybe it's just, oh, don't hit that. Oh, he's done it. He started another one. Let's check the refresh history. Maybe it'll tell me. It said it succeeded. Oh, okay. Let's quickly check. Oh my God, so exciting. Will it have a new table or didn't it publish? It didn't publish. So the publish failed. I tried to refresh it before it published and then it caused an issue. I think you need to give it time to publish first. So I'll try that and then we'll let you know next time. I've got to refresh the lake house too. Oh, okay, let me try. No, it's definitely not there. Okay. Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. See you next week for more Fabric fun. And yeah, it's tuning out. See you later.
Thanks, Greg. See ya.
See ya.
Yep. Thanks, Greg. Always